You know, when doing something like this, I far prefer being someone else to being myself. But I am capable of speaking as me, and I guess this afternoon I don't have a whole lot of choice. I was asked by Scott to come up with something and speak of one good idea to better West Virginia. Now, in bettering West Virginia, I would have to say that I will speak not only of bettering West Virginia, but of bettering our country and of bettering the world. And this idea probably hasn't been spoken of by anyone else, so I'll not worry about repeating somebody. My idea is the return of civility to our lives and work. When I was a young boy growing up here in southern West Virginia, I was quite fortunate. I had a close and loving relationship with a grandmother with whom I was able to spend a good deal of time. My grandmother operated the clubhouse in Nuttleburg, West Virginia. Nuttleburg's a community down on the New River that no longer exists. She was a bit of an oddity for her day. She was a businesswoman, and I think at that time, the 30s and the 40s, there were not a lot of business women. My mother and my uncle were raised in Nuttleburg. My grandmother worked there for the Maryland New River Coal Company. When the coal had been mined out in the Nuttleburg area, my grandmother, Elizabeth Alexander, was asked by a couple that she knew from Pennsylvania if she would be interested in coming to Raynell, West Virginia, and operating a property that they owned there called the King Coal Hotel. When I was 6, 7, 8, 9 years of age, I would go to the King Coal during summer vacation and help my grandmother operate that hotel. I may have been the only 7-year-old I knew that felt he had skills. I'm not positive at this point what they might have been, but skills and was absolutely needed. My grandmother was that kind of woman. I was needed to go and assist her in the operation of the property. We packed my bicycle in the trunk and over the mountain we went, and I spent weeks at a time with my grandmother at the King Coal. The rules there were really pretty simple. When I arose and got dressed, I could eat breakfast, go into the dining room, find myself a seat at a table, and order whatever I wanted for breakfast when it pleased me to do so. The same was true of lunch. When I was ready for lunch, I went to the dining room and ordered peanut butter and jelly or whatever it may have been. My grandmother was busy, and it wasn't often that our daytime meals coincided. After I had had my lunch, after I had had my breakfast, I was free to help the lady run the switchboard. I was free to assist the maintenance staff in their duties. I was free to ride my bicycle or tag along after my grandmother as she took care of the chores she needed to take care of. The evening meal, however, was different. When it was time for the evening meal, I was expected to get dressed, and I escorted my grandmother to dinner. She was a divorcee, and in the evening, I was the man of the house. We sat down at a table together, and it was there, at a table at the King Coal Hotel in Raynell, West Virginia, where my grandmother undertook to teach me about civility. She didn't teach morals. She assumed these were lessons I would learn in my home or in church, my Boy Scout troop. And yet the basis of all her teaching was a moral lesson, the golden rule. You shall love your neighbor as yourself, or do unto others, or however you want to state this. I was taught that we have certain moral responsibilities to one another, and among those are courtesy, politeness, respect, and consideration. As the dinner hour got in full swing, folks would stop by our table and say hello. When a lady approached our table, I was taught to get to my feet. Perhaps a chivalrous habit, one I've found it hard to break to this very day. I learned politeness. I learned respect. It was there I learned that I did not call my grandmothers or my parents' contemporaries by their first name. I called them Mr. and Mrs. I knew the meaning of please. I knew the meaning of thank you. I knew the meaning of I beg your pardon. I was taught always to respect my elders, but more than that, to respect my fellow human beings, no matter what their age or social position, no matter the color of their skin or their religious affiliation. I was taught the social niceties that make life so much more pleasant. But that was the 1950s, and this is today. That was before I had been through 5 election campaigns, seen the wreckage caused by road rage, read about the suicides of teenagers as a result of cyberbullying, and recognized the availability of information given us by computer-based technology. The darkest aspect of that technology is the lack of responsibility and accountability that the anonymity of a virtual personality provides. Freedom of speech is not the same as freedom from responsibility for what you say. Courtesy, politeness, respect, consideration. It is possible to disagree with others while respecting their opinions. Civility begins with one person, me. Civility calls for us to sacrifice just a bit of our self-interest to honor the intrinsic value in another human being. It is about boundaries in our lives, our homes, our workplace, our cars. To love our neighbors is not a command to love only the nice ones. I'm going to close. I don't know that I have given a speech so much as I have told a story here, but I'm more a storyteller than I am a speech maker. And I will once again return to that dining room in Raynell, West Virginia in the middle 1950s, and once again quote my grandmother. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Thank you so much. I do appreciate you being with me.